Have you ever wondered why black Africans were particularly targeted for enslavement by Europeans? Or why slavery was introduced to a world that had never experienced such inhuman degradation? Before these questions cast a haunting shadow over a chapter of history that has left indelible scars. Therefore, in this video, we will delve into the history of slavery, exploring why Europeans chose black Africans for this cruel institution, and how the slave trade began by navigating the intricate pathways of history to uncover the answers to some of humanity's most perplexing inquiries. But before we proceed with the video, if you haven't subscribed yet, and you found value in this video, kindly hit that subscribe button. Give this video a thumbs up, share your opinion in the comment section below, and a big thank you to all our amazing subscribers. Please don't forget to share this video with your friends and spread the love. Your support means the world to us. The history of European involvement in African slavery is a complex and deeply rooted narrative that spans several centuries. Understanding the motivations and choices behind this widespread exploitation begins by examining the historical and societal factors that contributed to this dark chapter. Slavery was a cruel system that played a devastating role in the early Americas, including North and South America, Central America, and the Caribbean. The labor of enslaved black Africans and their descendants became the backbone of these economies. But why were Africans chosen? It's important to know that there was nothing inherently different about Africans that made them more susceptible to enslavement. However, Europeans believed that black Africans were less intelligent and saw them as a source of power that could be exploited. It's essential to understand that there is no such thing as benevolent slavery. Any system based on the exploitation of labor can never be fair. Despite this, European powers like Spain, Portugal, the Dutch, British, and French were driven by a desire for conquest and capital, even if it meant introducing slavery. When Europeans explored the Americas from the late 15th century to the 18th century, they were not driven by adventure, but by their goal to accumulate wealth. This could be through acquiring gold, silver, land, farmland, or crops for trade. They wanted to increase European power and enrich their own treasuries. However, slavery was not their initial source of wealth. Let's go back to the early 16th century, when Spanish colonists took control of silver and gold mines in Central and South America that had belonged to the Inca and Aztec empires. They forced indigenous people to work in these mines under terrible conditions. The aim was to maximize profits with minimal labor costs, meaning they didn't intend to pay anyone. These colonists were ruthless, using violence and threats to extract materials quickly. This exploitation allowed the Spanish to expand their mining efforts and satisfy their greed for wealth. Although the desired precious metals were not found in other regions like North America or the Caribbean, the monarchies and early colonists were determined to make profits. They turned to crops like sugar, tobacco, rice, and later cotton, which promised high returns to maximize these profits. They increasingly relied on slavery as European workers demanded payment. So the initial pursuit of wealth led to the exploitation of indigenous people in Central and South America. Only later did the plantation economies of the Americas turn to the enslavement of Africans, resulting in one of the darkest chapters in human history. In 1619, the first black African slaves arrived in Jamestown, Virginia, which later became part of the United States, but they didn't come willingly. They were forcibly brought by the Dutch under British control. Even before their arrival, other Africans had already been taken to the Caribbean and Latin America. Since the early 16th century, European powers eager to explore and establish colonies in North, South, and Central America, as well as the Caribbean islands. The enslavement of black Africans did not begin with the colonization of the Americas. Its roots can be traced back to the 15th century, when the Portuguese, one of the European powers, started enslaving Africans during their trade expeditions to the African continent. It is crucial to understand that at that time, slavery was not limited to black people or those from Africa. It was a broader, more complex system that involved various groups including Islamic traders, West African communities, and Europeans. So why did European colonists exclusively turn to black Africans as a source of slave labor? The colonies in the Americas were not established with the goal of creating fair and equal societies. Their primary objective was to make money, and the quickest way to achieve that was by avoiding the payment of labor. Wealthy colonists who owned vast plantations saw an opportunity to maximize their profits by relying on enslaved labor. As the centuries progressed, the use of enslaved Africans became more widespread. By the 19th century, a significant enslaved population existed in the Americas, and slavery had become legally hereditary. This meant that children inherited their enslaved status from their mothers, resulting in heart-wrenching circumstances. The initial attempts by Europeans to enslave Native Americans in the Americas faced numerous challenges, leading them to turn to Africa as a source of labor. Native Americans' familiarity with the land made escape and rebellion more likely, while Europeans struggled with diseases to which they had no immunity. These factors, combined with the widespread genocide of Native American populations and the introduction of new diseases, made large-scale enslavement of Native Americans. Impractical European colonists turned to West Africa for labor, as it was geographically closer, and West African laborers possessed the necessary agricultural knowledge for crops like sugar, tobacco, and cotton. This marked the beginning of a troubling chapter in history as millions of Africans were forcibly transported to the Americas. During the transatlantic slave trade, eventually colonists shifted towards sustaining slavery through reproduction within the colonies, allowing for the inheritance of enslaved status to justify this ongoing enslavement. A disturbing shift occurred with the rise of scientific racism and racial organization. This ideology wrongly claimed that only people of African descent could be enslaved. Vexing. The fact that slavery had previously crossed racial lines and was based on battles and military capture, not skin color. The belief in the alleged inferiority of black Africans made it easier for Europeans to enslave, torture, and dehumanize them. Edward Long, a figure in the 18th century, played a significant role in perpetuating racial stereotypes about Africans without ever stepping foot on African soil. Long's work History of Jamaica propagated pseudo-scientific racism and condemned Africans as inferior beings, questioning their humanity. Despite lacking formal scientific training, his views gained credibility due to his time in the Caribbean and influenced the normalization of enslaving black Africans. Long's racial ideology was adaptable, shifting from defending slavery to justifying colonialism. His ideas influenced subsequent generations of explorers and adventurers who viewed Africa through a tainted lens before even arriving on the continent. One harmful notion that persists is the belief that tyranny, war, and chaos are inherent to Africa. Long argued that enslavement saved Africans from a perceived barbaric and chaotic fate in their homelands. However, this audacious belief erased the diverse history of slavery and framed it as exclusive to people of African descent. The enslavement of black Africans was driven by economic motives and upheld by the distorted racial beliefs propagated by individuals like Edward Long. The dark and complex reality behind this institution serves as a stark reminder of the inhumane treatment endured by black Africans, while challenging the notion that their enslavement was somehow easier than that of white Europeans. Thank you for watching.